Welcome back. I have Chelsea Sodero joining me on the podcast. Chelsea, thanks so much for taking some time to chat today.
Hey, Jon, it's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to catch up. It's been a while.
For sure. The last time we were just talking about the last time I saw you, or last time we saw each other, we were sitting at MH Bread and Butter in the Bay Area eating delicious sandwiches. And that was probably 2017, 2018. So you had just gotten into triathlon around then, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. You must have been in Marin County for some sort of trail event, I'm assuming. And yeah, MHBB is the local spot for all the endurance athletes.
For sure. So first question, who is Chelsea?
That's a big one. I am uniquely myself. Like, I do a lot of things, right? I am a professional triathlete. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I think at this stage in life, the two big things that I really identify with strongly are my job and my family. And those are kind of like the North Stars in my life at this point.
I love how you answered that. We all have so many things that make us unique, right? And you also happen to have just become an Ironman World Champion, and you didn't even mention that in in the intro, which I find so interesting, right? Like, it gets back to the question of, like, how do we define ourselves? If we don't define ourselves by our failures, do we define ourselves by our successes? And so here you have just completed something that, puts you at the top of the top, and that wasn't even in the consideration. Was that a conscious decision?
No, not at all. And I've had a lot of people asking me in the past few weeks if I've come down from my high of winning Kona and how my life has changed. And of course, like, from a business standpoint, it's amazing. And I've also achieved this thing that is the pinnacle of my sport, right? And something that was this kind of pie in the sky dream when I first got into triathlon. It wasn't actually even on my radar when I first started triathlon. But the reality is that, I have a toddler and she really doesn't care if mom has won Kona or not. She just wants her milk and she wants to go to the park and she wants me to play with her. And so I would say I came back down to earth like quite quickly after the race. And I think it's so important when you have big successes in life to really reflect on what got you there. And I think that is really important for me to move forward, right? Like, I have this certain lifestyle that has been really happy and healthy and successful. And like, I'm not about to go changing all of that, if that makes sense.
So I had a feeling you'd go in this direction with that answer, but I didn't think it would be like that affirming of that principle, right? I just had a conversation with Brad Stulberg about excellence and peak performance and whatnot. And it was very much the same discussion. And Brad's an expert on, like, what makes people successful conventionally, and how do we sustain these traits around excellence or periods of excellence. And his whole thing is consistency over intensity, or consistency over literally everything else. And we talked about the, like, chop wood, carry water principle, where I believe it's a very old principle of, like, okay, you win something, great, keep going. Okay, you lose something, great, keep going. Chop wood, carry water, where exactly how you said it, like, your daughter doesn't care that you won Kona. She still needs to be fed and she still needs to be paid attention to. And it's a really refreshing take, right? Because I think a lot of the people that are listening to this are pursuing their own version of Kona, and they're pursuing their own version of whatever their North Star is. And it's a nice reminder just right from the jump that, like, it's the things that get us there that matter. It's not the there, right?
100%. And I will admit that like the last month has been crazy on a lot of levels, and I don't feel like the most grounded person in the world right now because I've been out of my routine and really like enjoying the moment and seizing the opportunities that, come with something like this. On the flip side, like at the end of the day, what I love to do professionally is swim, bike, and run and see what's possible for my mind and body. And just because I won Kona doesn't guarantee anything for me in the future from a performance standpoint. I still have to show up every day. I still have to execute the process that I've been doing for so many years now. And I think it's so important to really, at a certain point after you have a big win or a big loss to like get back to that process that is what got you there in the first place and that ultimately you enjoy. Professional sport is so fleeting. It could end at any moment, right? Like you could have an injury or whatever. And, you just have to love the daily grind of swimming, biking, and running in my case.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. So you got into triathlon in 2016 after a focus on the track. What was the motivation for that change?
Yeah, I really struggled a lot in my post-collegiate running career. I had some initial success. I won a couple national championships right after college, and I ran some fast times and was a hair away from making a world championships team when I was 23 or 24. And I just had a really hard time finding the right kind of training environment for me. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was struggling with injuries, really kind of lacking consistency and stability in my life. And I had the worst possible day on the most important day in track and field, which is the Olympic trials in 2016, and fell flat on my face. I was pretty banged up in the lead up and then got injured quite quickly after the trials and had become a fan of triathlon, but like purely as an admirer of what they were doing. And the American women, all three of the American women actually heading into Rio had amazing medal chances in the triathlon. It was Katie Zafiris, Gwen Jorgensen, and Sarah True, who are all like incredible people, as a side note. Anyway, my husband and I were watching the Rio triathlon from our couch, and he looked over at me and he said, "I think you should try that. You'd be really good at it." And I laughed, but he ended up getting me a bike and we started riding together, and I joined a master's group and I got totally obsessed with this idea quite quickly. And I ended up joining an ITU professional squad in San Diego at the end of 2016. I think the coach saw my potential and drive and excitement for the sport and decided to take me on. And I started racing on that Olympic style circuit in the spring of 2017.
Very cool. Yeah, you mentioned Gwen Jorgensen. She moved to Boulder, I don't know, a year ago now, and we've become good friends. And it's like such a privilege learning from her because she's been at the top of the top. And we sat on the couch in my living room and talked about like, what is it like to achieve something that you've devoted your entire life to achieving? And it's like, okay, then what happens? Like, I'm not interested in the like, oh, what's it like winning the Olympic gold medal? It's like, what did you do the next day? So question to you, day after Kona. Okay, fine. Fast forward until like the high wore off, your legs were not as sore, etc. Then what did you do?
The next several days that I was actually in Kona was kind of a whirlwind. And I think it's the closest I'll get to a real professional sports big time moment because every triathlete and their mother is there. So that was quite a unique experience for me. And there were all sorts of fun events and stuff. But it wasn't until we got back home that my husband and I were just laying in bed one night and I looked over at him and I said, "Can you believe that happened? It's pretty crazy." And, it's those small little moments, right? Where you're with the people that you did it with, where you like can really sit in the experience and like properly say thank you and just like appreciate the journey that it took to get there because it certainly has not been a linear one for us.
Yeah, I love that. So many times people who achieve something, again, conventionally excellent, win something or whatnot. It's never about me. It's always we. Has that always been a part of how you experience sport? Um, Around like this is a team effort. This is we did this together kind of a vibe.
Absolutely. I think there's at all levels, but especially at the highest levels, there's really no other way. And I am happiest and I feel at my best when it's really a collective effort. And I think that one of my talents, maybe as an athlete, is seeking out people who are super smart and better at their areas of expertise than I ever could be. And of course, that means like working with a coach who I trust and physios and, sponsors and all of these things. But it's so much more fun when you are sharing it with other people. And I think that's something that isn't talked about maybe enough, that it's really hard to win if you're not enjoying the process and if it's not fun. And it's certainly not sustainable, at least for me. Like, I have been a quote unquote professional athlete since I was 23 years old, or at least pursuing professional sports since I was 23. So that's a decade of doing this. And I don't think that it would be possible to have stayed, the course for so long if I didn't love who I was surrounded by.
I want to ask about the process versus outcome piece. I had someone email me through the website form a few weeks ago and basically said, your summary of speaking with all these professional athletes is that the process matters and it's way more important than focusing on an outcome. And this is your conclusion due to asking the question to 200 pro athletes. Do you think that there's bias in that, in that the people who are pro athletes have already failed at focusing on an outcome or whatnot? And so I'm curious your thoughts on that question.
I think that success, especially in endurance sport, comes with consistency over a long period of time. On the flip side of that, there are so few guarantees in what we do that nothing is really certain. Like, success is not guaranteed, money is not guaranteed. And so, in the long term, you have to really be in it for the right reasons. And I think that's because you love it. You love what you do, and you're super curious to find out what you're capable of. I think that my race in Kona is such a shining example of that, at least for me. And I learned so much from that race because it was one of the few times in my career that I was really, truly, truly present throughout the 8.5 hour duration of the event, which is super hard to do. And I think that that's taken a lifetime of work to get to the point where I could really keep myself in the kilometer that I was biking or running for that length. And that takes a lot of training and investment and in that process.
I love that answer, and I asked that question about like, do you think there is bias in the process versus outcome balance or focus? And I asked a bunch of pro athletes this question. Two people in particular had answers that really resonated with me. It was Kate Grace and Kat Bradley, and both of them basically said the same thing in different words, which was the process is incredibly important, but the outcome, or the like, there are metrics that are important to use as carrots, and it's not like those are outcome related, and it's like, did you hit the XYZ in the day? So it's like, how do you check the boxes on a daily basis with the major focus being consistency? And it's, again, it's so fascinating. Like, I've come into this sport, I've been in sport the last 10 years or so. I'm just now learning that consistency is the most important thing. And it's so fascinating how people at the top of the sport will talk about that being the most important thing versus nailing your splits or, being perfect 98% of the time. So I don't know, it's a cool way to learn it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And of course, like triathlon is my job. And so outcome does matter. Like, in fact, outcome is super important. That's how I make a living, right? And outcome matters to me a lot. Like I want to do my best on the days that matter. And I am a perfectionist actually, and it's something that I have to work really hard to get away from or to like separate myself from. I think that a lot of us, right? We have coaches and people who guide us to help us really like focus on the daily tasks that will get us to those outcomes. So it's not like a solo effort where you're just like process, process, process. That's all that matters. Like we're constantly checking in on, okay, am I like doing the right things and am I doing them in the right way day after day after day?
I feel like a lot of endurance athletes are type A or perfectionists. You mentioned that it's been something you've been working on. How do you balance the desire to achieve that with like doing the things on a daily basis that allow you to check the boxes and avoid being perfect but still nailing consistency?
I think my daughter has helped me with this. She's 19 months old, and it's been a huge project, so to speak, to return to high level racing with a newborn and then an infant and a toddler now. And I just don't have the flexibility in my schedule or life to get so hung up on what isn't going right because I have a window to get things done and I have to do the best with the time that I have. And like, I can't always say, oh, it's not perfect right now. I'll try again tomorrow because I might not have that window tomorrow. And I've had success with this now. So now I have this kind of positive reinforcement that, oh, wait, I don't have to be perfect all the time. Like, of course, you want to be taking really good care of your body, but the reality is, a lot of the time, I don't get 8 hours of sleep a night because I just can't. Like, my kid wakes up in the middle of the night or whatever, stuff happens. And I still do my best with what I have and I get it done. And so that's maybe one of the like weird benefits of not having the flexibility of like the schedule I had when I was just, not a mom.
We're seeing a lot of high level female athletes have kids and return to high level performance. Obviously, you're an example of that. Gwen is an example of that. There are many others. What do you think it is? Do you think it is that establishment of like good enough is good enough, and my kid will love me if I don't hit 100%? Like, where is it coming from, do you think?
I really believe that it's one of those see it to believe it to be it sort of situations. I have had examples of women who have pursued career at the highest levels post baby. My own mom actually went to med school when I was 1 year old and had my brother during med school. And so I had an example of a woman who was really like pursuing these two big passions in her life at the same time. And then I was coached by Magdalena Boulet when she made the Olympic team in 2008. Her son was 2 years old. I was teammates, and I'm good friends with Alicia Montano, who has been, a shining light in our community for what is possible for women and also advocating for mothers in sport. And I think there are just so many examples of women now showing us what's possible when we have support throughout all of the phases of our careers, and that motherhood is not the kiss of death to pro athletics. In fact, we oftentimes peak in our mid to late 30s, and we just need that opportunity to stay in the sport. I remember Magda saying to me a decade ago, it's all about how long you can keep on doing it. Like, it's all about just finding ways to stay in. And if you can stay in long enough, you're going to have your moment. And of course, that couldn't ring more true for me than it did in Kona a few weeks ago.
Magda's incredible. Her life experiences and sport experiences and business world experiences and volunteer, like all of it. It's like, it's aspirational. She's been doing it at such a high level and having such a high impact on so many people for so many years. I think that's how we first got connected through GU and her work with us and you over at GU. And I've learned so much from her over the years, and it's been really cool to see what she's doing with Western States and her own running, and yeah, all predicated on just being an exceptional athlete, but also like she's an even better human than she is an athlete, that's what matters, right?
100%. And I feel so fortunate to have had her. Like, she has been a mentor in my life, like a significant figure in my life since I was 18 years old. And to have someone like that who you can call whenever you're making a big decision. She was one of the first people I called when I was even thinking about getting pregnant, to say, do you think that I can do this? Do you think that this is like a realistic
What'd she say?
idea? She said, of course. Yeah. But like, we talk through things, like we talk through the reality of what it could look like and how this can affect your career at a number of different levels. So it's not a blanket, like, you're going to be great, Chelsea. It's fine. I just feel like I will get a sincere, honest answer from her, and it's coming from a place of love and a lot of, care for me and my family. And she's invested a lot. There's no way I would still be doing this without Magda. I can tell you that.
So why are you still doing it?
I've asked myself that question a lot in the last 19 months since Sky, my daughter, was born. I think that, and I've had so many ups and downs in my career, right? I've been injured a ton. I failed a lot. And I think it all comes down to just this like intense curiosity and need to find out what I can do. And I do believe that is evolving a little bit, because that is sort of ego driven on a certain level. I still have that, but I also just feel immensely privileged that I have this body that can still perform in this way, and that I have the support to keep on doing this, and that I love it. Like, I love my job. And I also feel like this incredible connection with my team and my colleagues, and also the sport. One of the really cool things about non-drafting triathlon, which is what I do, like the Ironman sort of circuit, we have the professional triathletes organization as well now, is that you're like racing with the amateurs. You're on the same course at the same time. It's kind of like a major marathon sort of vibe. And so I like connect with all these athletes from all around the world at all different levels. And it feels like we're really in it together. And it's super, super fun.
A little different than track with the amateurs on the same course, right?
Right. I mean, track is so cool. And I've had the opportunity to run at amazing venues, right? Like I raced in the Diamond League circuit, and I've raced the Olympic trials, and it's very exclusive. You're interacting with the same sort of crowd of people, which is cool. But I just feel like I'm at this different stage in life right now where I need more than just eating, training, sleeping, racing, move on to the next training camp. Like it's just not what fills my soul anymore. And I like the autonomy that I have to be able to do things in the way that I want to do them.
What does community mean to you?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know if I have ever thought about like what defines community for me, but I have thought a lot about community. And I moved to a new place. My husband and I moved to Reno at the end of last year for his job. And it's like taking me a while to find my people here because I do travel a lot and my schedule is weird. But I think that community is about having like deep connection with people that matter to you. And for me right now, maybe it's not like my next door neighbor, but I do have a real sense of community and camaraderie with my like other women in my sport, with the small team that supports me to do what I do, and some like really close friends and like mentors that I feel are super invested in what I'm doing, and also I'm invested in what they're doing.
It's always so interesting how people define community. I mean, you talked at length about you couldn't do it by yourself. You couldn't, it was a we success, not like a little one, but done together.
Yeah.
And it's always so cool how people like this would be boring if it's not celebrated and shared with others, right? I always joke that trail running is exclusive of assholes. Like you can't be an asshole in trail running or endurance sports because you can't do it by yourself. You can't be good by yourself. You can't enjoy it by yourself. There are plenty of people who, they're happy to go out and, wander in the woods on their own. But like, I really don't think that it's possible to sustain either a livelihood or have a good time in these types of sports if you're not a good person, which is like a cool exclusion. It's like the only time that being exclusionary is acceptable. It's like, let's exclude the assholes.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you are stripped down to your soul, right? When you do these endurance events, like you are really like, it's all out there.
Yeah.
And there's not like the energy to be a jerk, I don't think, for the most part. What has shocked me the last year and a half is how many people have offered to help me or have reached out and
to you?
like, yeah, offered to help me. I'm like trying to think of a specific example for you, but like just at every level of what I'm doing, right? Like friends, hey, like you need somebody to watch your daughter in Kona, just give me a call. Like I am there, no problem. Or like bike mechanics, friends, family, just who are willing to like drop what they're doing and help me and my family chase after this thing. And I feel super humbled by that. And I think I've said this, like people asked what I was feeling when I was running down Elite Drive towards the finish in Kona, which is a super iconic finish line. It's like very cool. I would encourage anyone to go like spectate there one day because it's just, the energy is palpable and it's amazing. But I was just thinking like, what a better way to say thank you to all of these people who have done this with me. Like there's no better way.
Is gratitude something that you intentionally practice or you think about?
It is. It really is. Especially in the month leading into Kona. I was really struggling before my final build. I got sick. I was having a really hard time mentally kind of justifying this pursuit, like taking time away from my family to do it. And I got super intentional about my my mindfulness meditation practice, and also making a gratitude list every single night before I went to bed, and just reflecting on things that I am grateful for. And I tried to like come up with new things every day, but like the two main themes were like being thankful for people who are helping me do this. And then the other one was I have everything that I need. Because I think that it's really easy to get caught up in wanting more and wanting to be able to do more. And at the end of the day, like regardless of how my race went in Kona, I was going to be okay. Like my family's going to be okay. And we can put so much pressure on these big events that we train so hard for and put so much time into. But I feel super, super fortunate that I was in this place in my career where, like, yes, of course you want to have a great day, but you know, like we were still going to have like a roof over our heads and still be able to put food on the table. And like my husband still has, you know, like it's all good. And I think that it's really humbling and important to reflect on those things, especially as you're getting stressed and anxious leading into something that you do care about.
Well, I appreciate those words because I have probably the biggest workout I've ever done coming up tomorrow. And so there's been like a little bit
Awesome.
of anxious energy and excitement ahead of this 20-mile workout. And, 4 weeks out from the first marathon that I'll be taking a big swing at since 2019. And at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter. Like I still have plans later in the day. I'm still going to go see my friends in the afternoon. And like, no matter what happens in that 2.5 hour period, or in the marathon, a 2 hour, 3 hour event, like I'll still exist. My friends will still want to hang out and, all this stuff. It's like, it's such a useful reminder. I mean, we're recording this the weekend of the New York City Marathon. And people are freaking out about the weather, like appropriately so, because it'll be a little warm. Again, a little warm is all relative. It's like funny to see what a warm marathon is versus a warm triathlon or ultra run. But again, context is everything, and it's such a
Totally.
useful reminder. I mean, the way that you said it, like your daughter will still love you, and she's still hungry, and she'll still cry. I spoke with Scott Fauble 2 years ago now, and he talked about it in a very similar way. He was like, if I go out and finish dead fucking last, like my girlfriend will still love me, and my dog will still bark and want treats. And it's like it's so refreshing to hear professional athletes, again, who are being compensated on results and expected to perform, reminding us amateurs that at the end of the day, like you still have a roof over your head. Your partner or friends or family will still love you, and there are plenty of other things that just like need to get done, no matter how you finish.
Totally. Yeah, it's all about perspective, right? And it's okay for us to care a lot about these things, right? Like you invest a lot into a triathlon buildup or a marathon buildup or the preparation for any race at any level, right? And it's good to be nervous and it's good to, feel like it matters because it does. But we have to like ride it all because there's highs and lows, and those lower moments do make the great days even better.
Yeah, it'd be pretty boring if we didn't have the fluctuations of the. It's like I put in my training log the other day. I was like, I feel like I'm finally learning how to surf, like riding the waves up and down and up and down. It's like once you get to a place where like you don't push away the challenging times and instead embrace it as just part of the process, like that's learning to surf. My summer sucked from a training perspective. My fall has been awesome. And that doesn't mean that the marathon will be great. It's just like that's the ebb and the flow, and that's what makes the meaning.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into some fan submitted questions here. We got a lot of them. Rachel Allen says we should probably talk. Rachel's a triathlete friend in Boston, so we're gonna skip that one. Sorry, Rachel. What would you say to the moms out there that have mom guilt about continuing to follow your passion?
Mom guilt is real, and I struggle with mom guilt all of the time. However, I don't think it's super productive. And when we are able to take time for ourselves as moms to do the things that really light us up, we're better parents when we come home. I was just thinking about this earlier today, actually, because I have to leave my daughter sometimes for training or races, and I'll feel really guilty about it. But the cool thing is that when I'm gone, she gets extra time with her dad, or she gets extra time with her grandparents, and she has these incredible bonds with other people besides me. And while I do want to feel like the center of her world, I don't think that, like that needs to be exclusive. And I think it's really good for her to have like those special experiences with people besides me, because I'm not always going to be there. And like, I spend a lot of time away from her to train, right? And she's doing great. Like, she's a super happy, healthy, fun, social kid. And I would just say, like, your kids are going to be okay, and you deserve time for yourself. And it's also like really good for your kids to have other experiences.
I also think that you mentioned like it's not selfish to put yourself first in things that light your soul on fire. I think that's true for any situation. Like, we should all be striving to do more things that fill up our cup and allow us to be the best versions of ourselves in every arena, whether or not you have a kid or whether or not you have a spouse or partner or whatever. Like, do more of that, and you will show up as a good person or a better person in every arena.